Hi. Last week, you were asked to answer one of these ERQs as part of the paper one practice you're doing. As you're well aware now, an ERQ is the one that will give you the highest amount of points. Let's go back and read carefully the instructions. It says the marks will be awarded for demonstration of knowledge and understanding, which requires the use of relevant psychological research, evidence of critical thinking, for example, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation, and how you organize your answers. Let's see exactly what do they mean by that, using one of these questions in here. The first one says, discuss the effect of pheromones on human behavior. And we need to analyze the use of different command terms. Discuss in here, we have to evaluate. Okay, that's very important. So when it says discuss, and look, any of these requires a higher depth of analysis. It's not describe, it's not outline, it's to go further. So when you discuss, you offer a considered balanced review, including range of arguments, factors, or hypotheses. I'm going to use one of the examples of the questions you submitted. And I want to take a break here because right now we are facing a difficult time worldwide where we all are adjusting to different things. And as I was reflecting with another students, we're going through a natural experiment. All of a sudden, our lives have been changed due to the coronavirus, and we need to adapt to that. So there are a lot of implications on that. Right now that we're doing virtual schooling, I need to rely on your responsibility, integrity, academic honesty. And now that we're doing these open test books, the objective here is for you to get feedback on how you are organizing your responses. Unfortunately, half of you, when I collected the information and managed back, turned it in and recorded a really high percentage of plagiarism. And that is something that really got me thinking about. This is just a little parenthesis. Please reflect on this. And we need to step up and do a lot of changes involving your care, people around you, and also your studies. So let's go back to the question. I'm going to use one of the examples. Discussing the effects of pheromones on human behavior. So when I see this, the first thing I have to do is, of course, give a definition and some information on pheromones, which, remember, this is a topic that is controversial. There are a lot of researchers saying it exists, and they have studies to prove it, and there are a lot of others say they don't exist. That is minimalistic, reductionist. So when you're setting your information here, then you need to add the two different studies to back up that, to do the different lines of arguments. It's exactly like the way you did your extended essay. We can go to the exam tips you have in the drive. And remember, the first thing you have to do once you have the study, let's say in this case it was Wedekind and Zhu, is identify the method. So what method did you use? Okay? And in here, if it was a true experiment, okay, you have a tip for the evaluation. It's not only saying it was a true experiment, so why can this be applied or not to real life scenarios? And then you go on with each one of the research methods on how can you further analyze this method used. Then identify strengths and limitations. Okay, and once again in this document, you have a lot of ideas on the usual strengths and limitations according to each research method. And then apply it to your study. Remember that in the question said that critical thinking is fundamental. So you need to think about triangulation, assumptions, biases, alternative theories or explanations, research design, just like you did with your IA, Can it be generalized? Is there internal validity? How can we solve any of those limitations? Okay? So those things should be included in your analysis. Let's go back to the question that we had here. Wedekind. Okay? In the case of Wedekind, this study supports an evolutionary argument for mate selection in humans, and it has been successfully replicated by a lot of other researchers. So it's important always to evoke and to bring into the evolutionary argument. There are a lot of other researchers that argue that this theory is too reductionist, that simplifies the mating selection only by going through pheromones. In this case, the study was a double-blind experiment, meaning that neither the researcher nor the participants were aware of which of the t-shirts was exposed at any point. So this helped to minimize demand characteristics. Those are one of the strengths you can mention too. In regards to ethical considerations, the consent was obtained, they were debriefed. The sample, we have to see if this sample is representative, as all the participants were similar in age and culture. So those are some elements that you can include if you're using Wedekind. The next study used was Zhu. Measuring the levels of androstenedione in males and est in females. In this case, there's an experiment where the independent variable was manipulated. They tried to establish a cause and effect relationship between the two. The independent variable, okay, the androstenedione, okay, and the behavior. Rating the figure. This research carried out, the experiment was done with different groups based on gender and sexuality. The study was counterbalanced to control for order of effects, such as the practice effects. They're exposed to the same material over and over. Another important thing is that the dose used in here is higher than the one produced naturally. And at the very end, you need to conclude using both studies on how does it relate to the question. I wanted also to bring the third question, evaluate social identity theory, with reference to one or more studies. Once again, even though it says one, try to use two. Evaluating a theory. Please refer, once again, to the drive, where we have different theories in psychology. When we're evaluating a theory, we have to go through the teacup, and it's at the very end. Let's see if this loads quickly enough to see if it's testable. Still loading. Or you can find it in the drive. And then you back it up with different studies. It's always important to emphasize the use of psychological terms. That's why I highly recommend you go to the drive, you review in here where it says research in psychology. Please review what you have for qualitative, quantitative, and all the different ones, folders in here. It will give you good refresh on what are the words you need to use. And always in exam tips, you have the summary on what to include. Remember, in here you have If the question is about ethical considerations, you have a whole guide in here. If it's about research method, you have it here. If it's about theories, you have it in this one. Okay? Remember, you have to analyze it. You have to explain. If you say that this study lacks ecological validity, say why. You have some examples in here. If it's unethical, it's because. But if it's using the method triangulation as a strength, it's because. So always go further. Do not describe. This is discussing. This is going a little bit further. If you have any additional questions, please let me know. Bye for now.